Okay, so what we're going to be doing for this activity is we're going to be building a small structure or a house, and we're going to be using actual measurements that we can find the area and perimeter of different aspects of this house. So this is a really nice task to get a hands-on kind of feel for what a three-dimensional structure is actually built up of. So to start with, we're going to be using really basic shapes because we want to keep it simple for ourselves. On these shapes, you'll see there's these little white squares, and these are where we can input our measurements. Now we can see the sides that these measurements are going to affect. And remember, we're working in 3 dimensions, so we also have this cube up the top here, which if we click, we can actually drag around and check our 3 dimensions. The other thing that we can have a look at is down the bottom here, we have a snap grid, which is in millimeters, and at the moment, my grid squares are at 1 millimeter per square. So that helps me understand that from here to here is 1 millimeter in the real world. I can make that smaller or larger depending on what I want to do with my calculations, but keeping it at 1 mil is probably the easiest. When I'm trying to change my sizing, what I'm going to be looking at is entering my actual measurement size here. So at the moment, this is 20 millimeters. If we convert that into centimeters, that's 2 centimeters big. So if you can actually 3D print these files, so if you ended up actually wanting to have an actual copy of this 3D image, you can actually make that happen. So I'm going to enter in 50, so it's going to be 5 centimeters, so 50 millimeters. You can see it automatically changes. Now, because I'm building a house, I want to have thin, hollow structures, so I'm going to make sure that my uh, height is also quite small. So I'm going to go for a millimeter in height. So I'm just going to enter 1. That's going to take it down to a millimeter in thickness for its height. And now I can actually change the rest of this. So I know that this is already 5 centimeters. So I'm going to go 50 on this one to make it a perfect square. Now if I change my view, you can see that's actually pretty good. And I'm going to drag this around. So this is my floor base. So as a task, I could be asking, what is the actual measurement for my area for my floor? What's the perimeter for my floor base? And then we can actually move into volume once we start adding in some different some sides to it. So what I'm going to do for adding in sides, I can actually duplicate this. Control C, Control V. I think Control D works. No, Control D does work. So you can just duplicate it. And now I'm going to use rotation. So now I'm going to bring in rotation into this. And so I've got my rotation symbol, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. It's a 90-degree turn. And I'm just going to have to lift it up with this black top. Now this is going to be one of my walls, and I need to make sure that it's sitting at 0 on my actual height, my lift. So I'm going to make that 0 so it's flat on the floor. If it's any other number, it means it's actually off the, like, lifting off. I'm going to delete this one, I don't need it, and I'm actually going to duplicate this one. So duplicate it, drag it across, and set it on its side. Duplicate it again, and this time I need to rotate it another 90 degrees so that I have another wall, and repeat the process. $90. Now I could just enter that number in as well, and we'll stick it there. Now that I've got my solid shape, I can have a look at if there's any issues. There shouldn't be any gaps in it. And if I want to add some holes, what I can do is I can use the box to add some holes. And when I've got it all together, I can actually just group it together. So if I group it, it should be Control G. You can see that it will group it, and now I have a hole in my structure. Now we can start using actual measurements to see what we've got. And again, like I say, we can also 3D print this out. So give it a go and see if you can use that.